So a very good afternoon, everybody. In this semester 2 class, we are looking at the Westland. Yes? And we have right now listened the entire poem, and we have read also over the projector. And perhaps you might have done the reading in advance also, as it was informed to you yesterday also, to go through this poem there. Okay? So what we want to do now is that after listening the poem or after reading the poem once, the original poem, what are the impressions on us of this poem? So we want to try to do impressionistic criticism. Yes, impressionistic criticism. What is impressionistic criticism? Let us try to understand that very clearly here. Impressionistic criticism is an attempt to Okay, we had some audio problem. So in case the earlier part is perhaps not recorded, then let me just repeat that we are trying to do this impressionistic criticism of the Westland. We have listened the poem, we have read the poem, and now we are trying to see what is this impressionistic criticism. Yeah? So an attempt to represent in words the felt qualities of a literary work, and that is to express our response, the first initial response or the impressions, the initial impressions that we have. And one thing is very interesting here, that whatever kinds of impressions are evoked by this poem, whatever kind of that we have to say. So sometimes you say that, well, it is a very bad poem, it is completely not understandable, not a single word I can understand, from there to whatever sense it is making to you, whatever feelings are evoked. What do you feel about it? How can you speak about your feelings about a work of art? That is what is all about impressionistic criticism. William Hazlitt on this said in a work that is On Genius and Common Sense. In this work, William Hazlitt said that you decide from feeling, not from reason. Later on, when we will do further discussion of the poem, we will apply reason, we will apply logic, we will try to do that, further criticism. But right now, it is this, the initial phase, it is this, that what are the observations from your feeling that you try to give to a work of art. Walter Pater said in this preface to Studies in the History of Renaissance, in this work in the preface, he said that impressionistic criticism is what is the poem to me, what is this poem to me. So it is very, you can say very personal observation, personal criticism on that. Somebody may say that it is a great poem, some may say it is a kind of a stupid poem that doesn't make any sense. Well, that is what the poem is to me. So that is impressionistic criticism. And finally, Anatole France, he said that this is a kind of we can poetically look at it in such a way that it is an adventure of a sensitive soul among the masterpieces. Like the Westland is a masterpiece, or you are going through an art gallery full of masterpieces, and how your sensitive soul is responding to that, how your sensitive soul tries to respond. It is a kind of an adventure into the feelings evoked by the work of art. So, well, let us see now how this poem, The Westland, has worked on you or on your sensitive soul. What kind of feelings are evoked by this poem which we have just listened and also read. So, let me come to you to ask you that how do you impressionistically respond to this poem. Okay? Yes, so who will be first to give the response? Yes?
Yes, sir. The very beginning line of the very of the text, DSC says that this April is the cruelest month, but it is kind of problematic for me because when April comes, then there is spring, and it is the happiest season of all. So why he says that it is the cruelest month?
Okay, so the feeling that it evokes is about question. Yeah? Like you have a question that why is doing that is the feeling. So we don't want to go into reason or a logic. We want to see what is my felt qualities when I read or listened this poem. Yes, in that line, anybody else? Who else would like to give a response in an impressionistic way? Yes.
In a sense, this poem seems to have some negative impression, like as we go in the past, like the fire sermon, the death of water, we see some words in the fire sermon like burning, burning, burning. It seems like something is ending, something is not going, it's giving the impression of end or death in the poem.
Okay, so overall impression that you are getting is about something dying, something ending, a kind of a death, kind of a feeling that is coming over there. Okay, okay, then you can also think that is that feeling in the poem changing from something about destruction to looking towards construction or a hope at the end? Does it move from burning, death to shanti or not? Yeah? So how that trajectory creates a kind of an image or impression in your mind. Yes, who else? Yes.
Sometimes I found that its poem gives to hope and spirit, like that the Harriet, please it is time, that time you can do without give to hope.
Hurry up, please, it's time. So what is that telling to you? What does it tell?
It's the poem, the fire sermon, the point out. And I feel like the sometime this conversation gives to your inspired to more and yeah and conversational and you not find the word yourself, but I understand that give to hope like that.
A kind of hope, okay, still, but still, you yourself are also not very clear in what you want to say. That what exactly you want to give. How do you give words? How do you represent your felt qualities through words? Which again is very challenging. It is like whatever are our felt qualities, we tend to, we are supposed to, in this criticism, express through our words, and which obviously we find is very challenging. Feelings are bows, and bow needs to be expressed through words, which is not an easy task, very challenging task also there. Okay? Yes, who else would try? And the camera is on you, and this is going to be on YouTube, so you can't sit silent. People will watching on the YouTube will say that, well, master students, and they have nothing to respond. There are no right wrong answers. They just have to give whatever respond they can to a poem that they have just listened and read, and it is not possible that master students would remain completely silent. Yeah? Yes.
The part the fire state morning that like hardly ever departed lower means something showing of loss.
So you get that feeling of loss in this poem, yeah? Feeling of loss there. Okay, then is the entire poem about loss or things changing?
No, it is changing. But in this part, middle part, I thought that it's not loss.
Okay, fine. Okay, so you are seeing in bits and pieces. You are seeing the poem in bits and pieces, but overall impression of the entire poem, what is that overall impression of the entire poem? That also you can think of from what bits and pieces you have comprehended. Or maybe you may say that, well, the entire poem is beyond comprehension. You are not able to comprehend from beginning to the end. It seems to be quite of a large kind of a thing, like a huge mammoth, and from this corner of the elephant to that corner of a large elephant, you can't grab the entire poem in your mental perception. Is that what you feel? That also is your feeling. If that is what you think, that the poem, it seems to have a kind of an epical dimension, though it is not that long that it took like 2-3 hours to listen. It just took 20-25 minutes only to listen. So in that way, not very large, but the scope of the poem seems to be so large, epical, that you are not able to comprehend in totality. Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir. So another thing I find that these these outline the limitation of humans that by this line, and this is a bit a kind of dystopian literature perhaps. So he speaks in the very first part, the barrier of the dead. Son of man, you cannot say, oh yes, for you know only a heap of broken images, that you know only this much. And where the sun beats and the dead tree gives no shelter, the cricket no relief, and the dry from the sound of hope. It means that he is not talking about that William Shakespeare also said that the green would be just like me, but here he is turning these things into very destructive manner. No, it is not that. The tree will not give you shelter. The cricket is a kind of insect that will soothe your psyche when you go to rest in forest. But it will not do this. So it is a kind of dystopic thing.
Okay, so you are getting an image or impression about a kind of a dystopic vision, which Eliot or a poet is perhaps portraying in this poem, a dystopic vision. That is what you try to get an impression from this. Okay, then who else? We want something from everybody. What are your initial impressions of going through the entire poem? It is an adventure. Very interestingly, Anatole France has said this. It's a kind of an adventure of a sensitive soul among masterpieces. So maybe we do not have what we call it as sensitive soul. We have soul, but not so sensitive that it can respond in that way or give a kind of verbal response to our feelings. Are we lacking a language to articulate ourselves, or there is a problem with comprehending the entire poem? Both the things are there. One, like you may have words and language to articulate yourself, but you are not able to comprehend the entire poem. Some might have that you can comprehend the entire poem, but you don't have words to express that how to give this impressionistic criticism or response to whatever you have felt. Yeah. Yes, still somebody can try. I'm trying to make some space for you while talking about it, that you can say yes.
In the first part of the poem, that is the burial of the dead, I'm not able to connect what the sentence "hurry up, please" it is trying to say in the poem, but through this sentence "hurry up, please" it stands. We can interpret that it is for the people who have stopped to grow in their life and is asking that you have to do something in your life, and this is the only best time to do so. Hurry up.
Okay, fine. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. What you think with hurry up, please. It's time. When we will analyze, just try to see whether you were anywhere near whatever impressions you got when we thoroughly analyze the poem. At that time, you all can surely see that whatever you are speaking right now, is it anywhere near your impressions or not, but you have to speak something to record your impressions. We are doing recording, so we want the proof evidence of what you think or what are your initial impressions of this poem, so that later on you don't say, well, I understood, it is so easy, that there is no problem, this is what only I was understanding. So if you speak something and record something, then we can get that idea. Yes, who else is remaining still? Yeah, yes.
In the starting, I found that the feeling of hopelessness are there, and as soon as the poem uh, goes on, we found that some hope are emerging, like hurry up, hurry up. It means there are something hope to there are some hope to still to achieving or something like that. And at the end, at the end we found that Shanti Shanti, but it means like um, that it gives some feeling of completely hope in the in the beginning it is like hopelessness, and then as much as the poem goes on, we found that hope are emerging for something.
Okay, fine. So, any other things? So, okay, so you mean to say that the poem is somewhere starts with a kind of a hopeless or dystopic world, and then at the end, it seems that it is giving some kind of solution to that hopelessness, or a kind of a solution to the dystopic vision that initially it seems to have. At the end, it tries to give some solution to that, or a path to make utopia out of dystopia. That is the feeling that perhaps you get. Overall trajectory seems to be something like this, that the poet is trying to give some solution to a problem also. So initially he's talking about some problem, and then later on he is giving some solution about the problem. Okay, yes, yeah.
I'm talking about that I got the impression of nervousness. There is a line, or there is a kind of conversational dialogue. Or you can say more of in the game of chess, the second part, there is a lady, unknown lady speaking that my doubts are very right. Yes, well, stay with me. Speak to me. Why do you never speak? What are you thinking of? What thinking? What? I never know what you are thinking. Think. So this is a kind of a stressful thing for me that I just went through this and I found there is a kind of strenuous thing happening inside the world, more about chemical that is mentioned in the world. So it gives me that kind of impression. Or second impression.
Okay, so the dialogues, which are there are some kinds of conversations in this, and this conversations seems to talk about exactly in one word. If you want to give what you meant by that conversation, what is it about?
It is about strength.
About a stress, a kind of a strain, some kind of stress that seems to be there among the two unknown people. So they are not having a kind of an easy going communication. There is some kind of communication gap, there is some kind of stress, some kind of painstaking relations are there, strained relations are coming. So that is the impression you get in that part. Yeah. Okay, so now see, what you are seeing also is that in bits and pieces you are getting some impressions. Yes, so here there is some impression, there is some, and it seems that these impressions are not matching with each other also. It seems to be very distant also, that here you have this impression, there the another one, and all this seems to be disjointed. So overall we can say that it gives a feeling of that this poem seems to be fragmented poem, fragmented or broken. It doesn't emotionally take us into one direction, traffics our emotions and then loosens the emotions. So that way it is not moving in one way, that it is going towards a height and then from there it is dropping down. But somewhere there are these hiccups. Is giving something, then going down, then going up, going down. That we get. So fragmented way, brokenness of our impression is what we can record. That this poem tend to give some broken impressions or fragmented impressions about several things. Okay? That is a good point. The poem is obviously about fragmentation and brokenness or nothingness also. It is all about that. So if that is the impression, then you are moving near to what the poet wants to say, or what the poetry, rather let us say not what the poet wants to say, but what poetry wants to say, as we are in new criticism. So we would rather use the word what the poetry wants to say, rather than the poet. Yeah. Okay, what else are you getting here? Anything else? Anybody? Those who have still not said anything, you have to say something, some impressions that you have. Ah, yes, yeah.
First part, the burial of the dead. There is the one line, dry stone, no sound of water. Maybe Eliot wants to connect this line with the Christianity story about the prophet Moses. He gives water not in Israel, and because of science and technology, God, that of God, Eliot may be commenting on how religious popularity has a decline in a modern time, the laws of Christianity and God in the West uh, in the people's lives.
But this doesn't seem to be your impression. This is something that you have read somewhere. Yes, yeah, that is because why I say this, uh, because we are not in Christianity as such, because we are not as such in Christianity. So it is not easy for us to comprehend Christian imagery in a poem unless directly there is a reference to Moses or Jesus Christ. But you won't find anywhere a direct reference to cross, Jesus Christ, Christianity. So which word exactly is taking you into that direction? That is very challenging. So that's what the point I was making clear, that don't go by what interpretations you have read, but go to your own impressions, that this is the poem, these are the languages, these are the words, these are images. What do I mean? What kind of this felt qualities I'm getting from this? That is very important to be seen here. Yes. So that can you say, then we can see that how you connect those things with Moses or with Christianity. Yes. Who else is still remaining to give the response? Yes. Still we have a few students. Ah, yes.
I'm not sure that perhaps it is called nature poem or not, but there are so many references that I found of nature. Like the entire poem has a lot many elements of nature in it. Yes, used.
Okay. For example.
For example, like roads, mountains, river, rain, and there are the entire poem have lots of like snow and lot many others also.
And like if try to see what does those natural objects mean as an image in a poem. If you can see that, if you see snow or mountain, what does it signify? Do they have any kind of felt qualities? Can you give that emotional response when you think of mountain or a snow or any other natural object in the poem?
In this, in the third or in the fourth line, I found that dull roots with spring rain. Here, in this also, I found that like that we use sometimes we use fire or sometimes we use mountains or each nature each elements of nature has its particularly it it is used as a some particular meaning, like if fire, then something like burning or something like pain, and if he used rain, it means somewhere he used like rain, it means something greenery or something hope. Then you snow, it means thunder, or we can say like hopelessness, or what we say tiredness or something. This is how we use the elements. Rock, it means mm, like something which is very cruelness or somewhere. That's how we use.
Okay, so like when you see fire, it gives you some image of pain. Yes, so that is where you try to read that what are the felt qualities of the images that you get. So when you say fire and then rain, they give opposite feelings are evoked when we look at fire, then rain. So it goes against pain. So we see rain as something that is moving against pain. It gives sukoon, satisfaction, some kind of a kind of relief, some kind of relief from a kind of a parched life or waterlessness, some kind of relief. That is the rain. So then snow, what you see, snow means death, snow means barrenness, or snow means something good. What are those emotions that we see? That also is what you have to see. So when you see the natural object in a poem, what kind of emotions are being evoked, that is very important to notice it and represent those things in form of words. You have to represent those things in form of words when you do that. So you have to go for those adjectives, that what is this pain, what is this satisfaction, happiness, unhappiness, how that becomes significant. Okay, who else? Still we have, yeah, 3 4 students remaining. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, sir. I have just a little bit. I have one query that these 5 parts, that 4 parts are with the reference of nature, but second is a game of chess. That it quite questionable that why a poet is choosing first part as the reference with nature, that burial of dead, and then second is a game of chess. Suddenly we are it's very confused to me that why burial of dead, and sudden he jumped that game of chess. And third part is the fire sermon. Then
Sermon, yeah,
sermon.
for sermon.
And fourth one again, death by water. So death perhaps the center theme. And second one is poet put unreal city 2 times in very two part of this poem. So this unreal city that might be poet try to explain that about unreality of city perhaps. And again, unreal word also he put in I think third or fourth part.
Okay, so well observed. A couple of things, like death is something that is repeated. Death, burial of the dead, death by water. So we see that death is one thing that is getting repeated here. One. Then so that is death becoming a symbol, like we were seeing about dystopia earlier. We are looking at dystopia, or we are trying to see that it has some kind of negative emotions also. So are all these images getting together towards something that is problem, death, unreal, burning, so the dystopic world that it tries to see, that one point. Second was that unreal city, that how it gets connected, and there are name of those cities also, Jerusalem, Venice. So this big cities, historical cities, where civilizations grew some in our history. These are all locations where civilizations have grown, and they all are burning now. or falling down, like it said, London Bridge is falling down, falling down. So that image, we have to see that, well, what kind of impression it generates or evokes in our mind when we see that. Yes, Nirav, you want to?
Yes, sir.
Hmm?
Sir, I think this poem is certainly written after 4 years when the Great War, the First World War got ended in 1980. And sir, perhaps this, the wasteland is meant to be, is meant to refer to the world which was the post First World. So perhaps this kind of the poet is taking impression of what kind of people were, what kind of imagery was the scenario. The gloomy scenario we get from the we talk about this 5 chapters that there is no mention of hope and life. There is only the death in center. So sir, can we relate the things or gloomy impression that we got after getting the or after skimming over this poem?
Okay, so well, we know the time of this poem, so we can connect with post First World War dynamics, yeah? Because we know the time of this poem, so we tend to look in that way. But imagine if you're not aware about the time, then also, like, so well, it is good to see that this is the time we know about Westland, so we try to connect it in a particular way and say about it. So no problem with that way of reading also. So it obviously speaks about a kind of an anxiety that came from First World War, which the 20th century setting is also telling that the life between two world war was a terrible life, and any thinker, anybody who has sensitive soul might be disturbed by the way the things are happening. So anybody who is sensitive, when they will sit down to write any work of art, they obviously will have some kind of dystopic way of looking at it, or something that is problematic, terribly problematic with humanity, with human being. Yeah? So that we can see. But also we have to keep another thing in mind, that is this work of art about timelessness? Will it speak about our time or any other time as such? Even after 50 years down the line, when people will be reading this poem, will it still make any meaning? Even if there are no world wars, that also can be the point that we can keep in mind when we respond to this there. Yes. Yes, who else would like to give any response? Who? Yeah. Anybody else now? Or all are empty now? Yeah. Anything left, then you can, yeah, if there is. Yes. Any other responses, if they are there in your mind? If your sensitive soul has anything in form of any record, and then if you want to articulate, then do it. Don't hesitate, whatever it is. Yeah? So there's no need to say that my response will be right then only. Whatever you have understood or not understood, anything you can tell when you give impressionistic criticism. Yeah? Yes. Okay. Finally, who will like conclude whatever we have discussed? What is your impression of whatever we have discussed now? What is how will you join the dots with whatever impressions we have received? Yes? Who will try to join the dots with all the things that we have done here? Okay. So after reading and listening the poem, we try to see impressionistic criticism in terms of what William Hazlitt, Walter Pater, and Anatole France had to say. And then we ask you, and you all have given very interesting responses to this poem, which is quite true also in its spirit. So you are able to capture the spirit of the poem. The spirit of the poem you are able to feel. And impressionistic criticism is about feeling that. That can we feel the spirit? Whether we can understand everything or not, that is secondary. But can we feel that this is what the poet or the poetry wants to evoke in us? So that was, you were able to do that. Yes, so now who can sum up whatever we have discussed so far? Highlights of everything? Yes, who will give the final collective response? You can cover up everything there. Yes.
In this poem, to different points, as we discussed, we spoke. According to our points, we discussed that there is hopelessness and ending towards the poem is ending with hope, showing us hopelessness of the world or life. Then it has we saw that it is giving some of the negative impact. The death is the main theme, the death is working throughout the poem, the endness of the life. Something is shown like that. And we also saw that the poem, we are interpreting the poem in the fragments, we are not able to comprehend the complete poem. Perhaps because it is vast, or it can also be because it is talking about very different topics. Then as the heading of the all the five parts are related to death mostly. Like the thunder is a symbol of something remedious. That's what I think.
Okay, anything left out? Anybody would like to add to it? Okay, fine. So the impressions that we got from our discussion and whatever we have seen so far is that we can see that the poem speaks something about a very dystopic world, or something that is an imagery which keeps on recurrently coming. It speaks about nothingness, or it speaks about communication which is not possible among the human beings. It speaks about a kind of a stressful situation where things are burning, things are falling down. And it also gives along with this an impression that there is peace possible, shanti is possible, the possibility of shanti is there. So the last three lines, three words in the last line are shanti, 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 coming obviously from Upanishad. From that the lines are taken. So that is the overall impression, that it speaks about something terribly wrong with the world, with the human beings, but then there is the possibility of peace. And that is how the poem is moving or ending also. Okay? So this is how we get the initial impression of this poem, The West Land, which is known as the modern epic, written by T.S. Eliot.